This is Maple Blues.
Welcome to the Maple Blues Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the NHL, the St. Louis Blues, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and other things hockey. And yeah, it's kind of been a while since we had another episode, but we're both back and it's playoff time. And as if you know, I think you should know if you're watching this, but both of our teams, the Blues and the Maple Leafs, have made the playoffs. Both of them have had different stories in how they've made the playoffs, and we're going to go over it. So first, Charlie, you can talk about how the Maple Leafs have been and how they got to the playoffs this year.
Oh, yeah, certainly. So, like Aidan said, it is playoffs time. The most amazing time to be a hockey fan. The best playoffs of any sport, really. I mean, everything from the speed to the hits to the magical moments, the triumphs, the defeats, the crowd noise. It's what we live for. And I am happy to say that for the ninth consecutive season, my Toronto Maple Leafs have made the playoffs. And in the first round, they will be facing off against their provincial rivals, the Ottawa Senators. As of right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the hottest team in the NHL going into the playoffs, and they are really going to need all the momentum they can. Basically, the story of this season has been their goalie acquisitions, or acquisition, I should say. They went and got Anthony Stolarz over the offseason, and he has stolen game after game for these Leafs. One thing I don't like is that they've been getting outshot in just about every single game they've played, but this team just keeps finding a way to win, and they finished with a record of 52, 26, and 4, which is pretty solid, can't complain. It's pretty hard to get a 50-win season, and now they're going to be put to the test. The pressure is on. This is a team that needs to start performing more in the playoffs. There is a lot of eyes on them, especially now since they're facing off against one of their biggest rivals in the Ottawa Senators. These two teams have fans who love talking trash back and forth. It's not going to be the Battle of Ontario. It's going to be the War of Ontario. I am very excited because the last time these two teams met in the playoffs, I was 1 year old. But I'm also very nervous. The feeling is like sort of the same as when you're standing in line for a roller coaster. Because although I am optimistic and I know the Leafs have what it takes to win this series, I know that if the Leafs lose, Senators fans are never ever going to let us hear the end of it. So to say I am extremely nervous would be a complete understatement. But the decor is looking good. Stolarz is looking phenomenal, and he's going to need to stay phenomenal going into the postseason here. And I can't wait to get started. But enough about my team. Aidan, why don't you talk about the Blues?
Yeah, first I want to talk about the Leafs as well. Honestly, when I saw that the matchup was going to be Maple Leaf Senators, all I could be thinking was, oh, if I'm the Maple Leafs, I'd be pretty nervous since the Senators did sweep the season series in the 4 games they played. And I think the Senators have been waiting for revenge. The Senators are making the playoffs for the first time since 2017. And the Senators, while they may be young and inexperienced, they're honestly young and hungry, and they might be able to pull off an upset. So if I'm the Leafs, I would definitely be cautious. Now, for my team, the St. Louis Blues, they have had quite the run since our first episode. The Blues are inconsistent. They're still in the hunt, but they kind of need a lot to happen in their favor. They need to win consistent. They need to win 3 games, which is somehow hard for them to do this year. They need to win 3 games in a row and win more than that. Since March and April, they went on a 12-game winning streak. They did stumble in a 3-game road trip, but they did win their last game against Utah and have clinched a playoff spot with a 44, 30, and 8 record for 96 points for the second wild card in the West. Currently, they're 2 points ahead of the Flames. The Flames do have a game tonight against the Kings, so we don't know if the Flames are going to win tonight or not. We will find out later tonight or in the morning tomorrow. So the standings might end up where the Blues are tied with the Flames at 96 points. The Blues might be ahead by 1 or 2 points. But either way, the Blues are in the playoffs. The Flames are not. And the Blues are going up against the Winnipeg Jets. Now, if that matchup might sound familiar, you might remember 2019, that great year where the Blues won the Stanley Cup final. They, of course, took out the Winnipeg Jets. And of course, if I'm correct, that might be I know it's the first game for the Western Conference on Saturday. I don't know about in general. I think there's probably 2 Eastern games starting on Saturday also, but on Saturday at 5 p.m. Central, 3 Pacific, Blues will play the Jets in Winnipeg, Game 1. Now, what am I thinking about the series? On one hand, there's that tiny part that thinks, oh, the Jets are probably going to destroy the Blues or at least take this series. But on the other hand, I'm feeling optimistic for a few main reasons. One, the Blues have beaten the Jets in a series before. Two, Binnington has shown that he can show up in clutch moments like the Four Nations face-off and the 2019 playoffs. Three, the Jets won the President's Trophy. Now, I'm not saying that automatically rules out the Jets and says the Jets are done. However, that is something to keep in mind. The President's Trophy curse does exist. No team has won the President's Trophy in a full season. I can't remember when. I want to say it might have been the 2002 Red Wings was the last time a team in a full season won the Stanley Cup when they won the President's Trophy. And that being said, I feel optimistic. I think the Blues will give the Jets the best shot they can. Now, the Blues are missing Dylan Holloway. They will need to get him back to full strength as soon as possible. But I do think the Blues have the depth to take down the Jets. I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, but I think it could be at least 6 or 7 games. Now, I'm not going to make a prediction. I'm terrible with them, but I am very hopeful. I hope the Blues win, and that's what I'm going to say. I hope the Blues beat the Jets. I don't care how they do it. I just hope they win.
I gotta say, the story of this year's St. Louis Blues is insane. Because around the time we recorded our first episode, like just after the Four Nations, everyone had ruled the Blues out. Like, no one was really taking them seriously. But this Blues team, I'm seeing flashes of 2019, honestly. And like you said, that year, the Blues did upset the Jets. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, because I want to segue into talking about the first round of the playoffs in general. And what better place to start than, of course, that first round matchup between the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. From your guys' perspective, from the Blues' perspective, the pressure is very much not on you. All eyes are on the Winnipeg Jets because this is a team that has very much been a disappointment in the playoffs despite strong regular seasons. They're kind of in the same boat as the Leafs right now. Like, they need to start, showing out. Last year in the playoffs, they were the only higher seeded team to be eliminated in round 1. And they went down in 5 games, which is just unacceptable. And it's definitely going to be exciting to see that rematch of Binnington versus Hellebuck. I don't really feel confident saying that the Blues are definitely going to upset, but keep in mind, once the playoffs start, no team is invincible. Anything can happen. That's what makes these playoffs so amazing. But because I'm feeling dangerous today, I'm going with the Blues in 7 games.
I'm going to honestly think the Blues could take it in 6 or 7. I'm not officially saying it's a prediction because I'm terrible with them. However, if we may remember, my gut feeling has honestly helped me in the past before. I'm going to think the Blues do have a good shot at taking it. Now, since you mentioned Hellebuck, I wanted to take a look at his stats. He has played 63 games this season. He has 47 wins, 8 shutouts, and exactly 2 goals allowed average, and a .925 save percentage. Now, the reason I also bring up Hellebuck is because I think one of the main reasons that the Jets flamed out in the first round was I think Hellebuck was run into the ground, and he did not perform to his best in that 5-game series against the Avalanche. So playoff Hellebuck who usually implodes.
I know that there are going to be a lot of people here in Canada who are going to be cheering for the Jets solely because they're a Canadian team. And I've made it very clear in the past, I hate that mentality. Like, I hate when Canadians just cheer for a team because they're based in Canada. Because this is the NHL, okay? It's a club league representing cities. Like, the teams do not represent the countries. And that alone makes me sort of want to root against the Jets even more. But, if these people want to be logically consistent, I mean, Jordan Binnington's Canadian and Connor Hellebuck's American. Just saying. But yeah, that whole let's cheer for a team just because they're Canadian mindset is going to be one of the reasons I'm cheering against the Jets. But mostly I want them to win for you, And honestly, this Blues team, it's pretty likable. And Jordan Binnington, like I said, I owe this dude an apology after the Four Nations. Like, he's just an absolute stud. We're going to see two very talented goalies go head-to-head here. And, if things go the way they did in the Four Nations, I think the Blues are going to get the best of Connor Hellebuck here. But, the good thing about you guys and the position that you're in is that as a wildcard team, no one expects you guys to do anything. So if you lose, it's not really the end of the world. Like, sure, it would suck, but being the higher seeded team and losing is a lot more embarrassing. So in that sense, you can sort of be happy with the position you're in.
Oh, certainly. I'm glad, and I'm just glad the Blues are in the playoffs. I think the pressure is mainly on the Jets because the Jets have been trying to get that Atlanta stench off of them since they came back. Because, as you said, they've been nothing but a playoff disappointment. If I'm correct, they've only won 3 playoff series in their existence. So yeah, the pressure is on the Jets, and this series will be big. And honestly, the Blues I think they've set up their core is pretty nice. They're honestly ready to get back into true playoff contention. I think some other offseason moves could be made, but I'm excited about the Blues at least have a good series against the Jets, and yeah.
All right then, moving on. We got the Dallas Stars versus the Colorado Avalanche. This is going to be interesting. I've seen many people say that this is going to be the series to watch in the Western Conference. And it's pretty obvious why, with the whole Mikko Rantanen thing. But, aside from that, these two teams met in the playoffs last year with Dallas winning that series in 6 games. Now, despite the fact that Dallas is favored to win, they have not been looking the greatest going down the stretch here. I'm going to say Avs in 7. Like, keep in mind, Avs in 7 means I think that there is still a strong chance Dallas wins, but my gut is telling me to go with the Avalanche. They upset the Jets last year. I think they could very well upset the Stars this year, although the Stars have had their number in the playoffs in 2020 and 2024. But I think this is going to be a very, very evenly matched series, and it could very well go either way.
Yeah, so speaking of the Stars, I saw last night, I'm looking it up now, Jason Robertson is out. He's not going to be in Game 1 because he left the last game in a knee brace, so he's not going to be playing in Game 1. So the Stars will be without him, and if I'm correct, I believe the Avalanche are going to have Gabriel Landeskog back, or he might be ready at some point for the series. So he's a possibility, but he might be sitting out in Game 1 and Game 2. He could play in Game 3, but the Avalanche could get Gabriel Landeskog back, so I do agree with your gut feeling towards the Avalanche. I feel like the series could go either way. I think it could be another thrilling 7-game series. I just think for me, it's going to be a matter of who doesn't get hit with the injury bug, or who honestly has more luck, who has more skill, more luck, stuff like that. That's what the playoffs are about. You need to get the right bounces sometimes, and I think I'm going to say it, even though I hate this team, they're one of my least favorite teams. I'm gonna say the Avalanche take this series in 6 or 7, probably 7.
All right, so we reached a consensus with that one. Moving on, we have the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. Now, this is the series I see people talking about the least. And honestly, I don't think anyone really expects Minnesota to do anything given their track record in the playoffs. And I think this one's going to go to Vegas. I think it's going to end in 5 games. Minnesota has been incredibly inconsistent, especially in the second half of the season. I genuinely do not think they're going to have enough gas in the tank to take down the high-flying Vegas Golden Knights. I'm taking Vegas in 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Say Vegas in 5. I remember I went to the Blues home opener. They were playing the Wild. The Wild looked, I wouldn't say entirely complete, but they were the better team. They were, I want to say at one point they were top of the Central, or at least in that dogfight for the Central Division, and then they slid all the way to the first wild card. Now that might have to do with Dallas, Colorado, but it's still something to keep an eye on. And Kaprizov has been out, and the Wild have been slumping without him. So how much was Kaprizov carrying this team? But yeah, I feel like it's going to be Kaprizov versus the world, and maybe Gustafsson and Fleury try to bail him out. But if Kaprizov can't carry the team, and if Gustafsson can't stand on his head, Minnesota's another first round exit, which this one might hurt even more since it's going to be 10 years since the Wild have won a playoff series. The last time they had was 2015 against my Blues. I'm still happy about it, but yeah, I feel like in some way Minnesota does have a little bit of pressure on them only because they want to end that playoff drought. But yeah, I feel like Vegas takes this series in 5. Unless something happens, unless Mark Stone gets injured for the 10 zillionth time, I feel like Vegas takes this in 5.
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting to see Marc-Andre Fleury up against his former team. His last season in the NHL, it's definitely going to be a heartfelt goodbye if this ends up being his final playoff series. But, he's had a great career, a multi-Stanley Cup champion, and, we'll see what he can do. Now, moving on to the series in the West I am most excited for, the Los Angeles Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. I really think this is the year that the LA Kings take down the Edmonton Oilers. And it's not just because they're the higher seeded team. The LA Kings, going into this series, have a phenomenal home record. They are 31-5-4, which is insane. I believe that is the best among all the teams that have made the playoffs. And let me just check. What are they doing right now? All right, they're tied with the Flames 0-0. And part of the reason they have such a good home record is because their defense has been airtight all season. This is a team that has 201 goals against. That is the second fewest of all the teams that have made the playoffs. And on top of that, Darcy Kemper has been playing out of his mind. I had him on my fantasy hockey team. He did wonders for me, okay? Like, he helped get my team to the finals. I mean, we lost, but still, that was just insane what he's been doing all season. And I think the Kings' defensive system plus their goaltending, it's going to prove to be too much for Edmonton, despite the Draisaitl's and the McDavids that they have. I think this is the year that the Kings finally exercise their demons against the Edmonton Oilers. It's going to be a series, that's for sure. But I'm feeling good about this one. I'm feeling Kings in 6.
See, I disagree. Part of me is feeling lazy and just saying, oh, Oilers in 4, but you do provide strong arguments for the Kings. I feel like if there's anything that could kill the Oilers, ironically, it could be less depth, because they did lose Broberg and Holloway to the Blues, to the offer sheets, with Oilers fans are still getting mad at the Blues instead of blaming their own team who dragged their heels in the offseason. But part of me just feels like McDavid and Draisaitl are going to turn it on in the playoffs, and Kemper won't be able to bail them out. True, I guess the home ice advantage the Kings have had could play in their favor, so I could be wrong, but I'm just going to go lazy and just say Oilers in 4. And I probably will be wrong because I'm always wrong with predictions, so We'll just have to see at the end of the first round which one of us was right.
That is going to be quite the series. Also, I just want to apologize if you guys hear the dogs barking in the background. But anyways, moving on to the Eastern Conference, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. This series, I have been losing sleep thinking about this, just because of the bragging rights that are on the line and the torment that's gonna affect me mentally if the Leafs lose. Now, I have good reason to be cautious, mostly because of, what happened in 2021 when the Leafs were heavily favored over their biggest rival, the Montreal Canadiens, and they blew a 3-1 lead, mostly because Price was playing just out of his mind, which, gotta give him credit. He's a phenomenal goalie. But I genuinely think the Leafs are a better team this year than in 2021. And I think what's going to be the difference maker in this series is the goaltending. Obviously, Stolarz has been great. Like, I cannot sing that guy's praises enough. He's making miracle save after miracle save. And I genuinely think that the Leafs have a better D-core than the Ottawa Senators do. Now, the concern with the Leafs, that has been the trend over, the past few years, is their top guys disappearing in the offseason. They've just stopped scoring, and this has especially been a problem against the Ottawa Senators. They've only scored 3 goals over the 3 games that they played against them in the regular season. So, clearly, the Senators are capable of keeping the Leafs at bay, which is why it's going to be so critical for Stolarz to be at the top of his game. Now, these guys like Nylander especially has been phenomenal this season, and he's going to need to stay hot if the Leafs have a chance in this series. And it's not to mention the Senators, they are going to be pesky in this series. They are going to want this. So the Leafs need to learn from 2021. The forwards need to hopefully not vanish. And as long as Stolarz keeps playing the way he's been playing throughout this season, the Leafs should win this series. The nightmares that have been plaguing me have been telling me that the Senators are going to win in 7 games. And I am legitimately going to cry myself to sleep if that happens. But I think it's better to at least pretend to be confident, even though I'm not. And I'm going to say Leafs in 5.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Battle of Ontario. So for historical reference, the Maple Leafs and Senators have met in the playoffs 4 times in the early 2000s. In 2000, the Maple Leafs won in 6 games. In 2001, the Maple Leafs swept the series. In 2002 and 2004, in 2002 and 2004, the Maple Leafs beat the Senators in 7 games. So I feel like revenge will be on the minds for the Senators. I feel like this series can honestly go two ways. It can either be that the Maple Leafs dominate the Senators in an Air Canada Center full of Leafs fans, or the Senators could humiliate the Leafs in an Air Canada Center full of Leafs fans. That's the only real consistency is Maple Leafs fans will take over Air Canada Center because that happens a lot. But I feel like with the Senators, it's honestly going to be Linus Ullmark will have to channel his 23 regular season form and not honestly implode like he did in the 23 playoff, though I don't know if that was entirely his fault. I feel like also the Senators, their offense is going to have to outshine the Leafs. Now, I think if the Senators' offense actually shows up, if the Leafs are stuck in the Berube system where they don't have as much offense, I feel like the Senators could win this series. So honestly, I think the series could go either way. I don't know. Part of me wants to just go safe bet and pick the Leafs, but the other part of me thinks the Senators might have a chance. I'm gonna have to say Ottawa in 7. I feel like Ottawa makes it close. They definitely give the Leafs a scare, and the Leafs are definitely kicking themselves and panicking at the series. I bet it's very close. I'm like on the edge, but I'm going to give that edge to Ottawa.
Yeah, I might just go into like cardiac dysrhythmia watching this series, to be honest. I am so nervous. But, those series in the 2000s, especially like 2004 in particular, honestly, the Senators very easily could have won that series. What ended up making the difference is that their goalie, Patrick Lalime, ended up letting in some very soft goals, which just goes to show, like, anything can happen in hockey, you know? And, the fan atmosphere is going to play big into this series because, Leafs fans historically have taken over Canadian Tire Center where the Senators play, albeit less so in the playoffs, but you better believe the fans are going to be into this. And I think just the crowds alone are going to make this one of the most exciting series in the playoffs. And, if the bubble playoffs taught us anything, it's that hockey really just isn't the same without the crowds. So, it is going to be a war of Ontario. And I am, like, begging to the hockey gods that the Leafs don't blow this. Yeah, should be exciting. Anyways, moving on. Battle of Ontario to Battle of Florida, we got the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Florida Panthers. Now, like the battle between the team that finished second in the Central and third in the Central, who are very evenly matched, I think the team that finished second in the Atlantic and third in the Atlantic are also very evenly matched. And this is one I don't know who to pick. I mean, first of all, in net, these two teams are, like, basically identical. Like, if you'll remember, these two teams met in the playoffs last year, and even though the Panthers won in 5, both goalies were playing very well, and I think that's going to be the case as well here. Neither goalie's going to make it easy, and even though the Panthers have been struggling a bit down the stretch, they have been missing a few key pieces, but, this is a team that, when the playoffs start, they know how to turn it on, They are very good defensively. I think they just outcoach most teams that they play, to be honest. And while my brain says to pick the Lightning, my gut says to pick the Panthers. Honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong, but I'm going Panthers in 7.
I don't know how many times I keep saying this, but I feel like this is another one of the series that could go either way. You said Panthers, however, haven't really been paying attention, but I'm seeing that the Panthers have been not exactly struggling, but haven't exactly looked the same with Matthew Tkachuk. Now, what I'm hearing, Matthew Tkachuk will be ready for Game 1, but it will be his first game back from someone kind of serious injury, so I don't know how he's going to respond immediately being thrown into the fire, and I don't know how much chemistry he developed with Brad Marchand. That will also be a big question mark, will be what will the Panthers do if they do lose in the first round. I don't know if it depends on how they lose, but for me, I'm disagreeing giving the edge to the Lightning only because their offseason moves and what they've done this year. I'm more confident in them. I feel like Bobrovsky will try to at least steal some games for the Panthers, but fortunately, I'm giving my edge to the Lightning. I'm going to say the Lightning take it in 6, maybe 7, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers put up a big fight. But unfortunately, I'm just going to have to give the edge to the Lightning. I feel like the Lightning are the better team between the two Florida teams.
Honestly, can't blame you for saying that. I mean, like I said, I would not be surprised at all if the Lightning end up winning the series. I mean, that's part of what makes hockey so exciting, it is such an unpredictable sport. Like, last year was an anomaly. It's usually not like that. So, I feel like I should be picking more lower-seeded teams, and, I mean, that's not a rational reason to pick the Panthers at all. But, you can look at statistics and rosters all day, but, like, at the end of the day, when the playoffs start, a weird bounce here, a hit of the post there, and, a series could go either way, but I'm sticking with the Panthers, and honestly, I think they are in a nice position to maybe make another run at the finals. But anyways, moving on, we got the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. These are two teams that have been basically trending in different directions all year. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room, Ovechkin passed Gretzky's scoring record, something many people thought would never happen. That is just incredible, like, great for him. And the Capitals, after getting swept in the playoffs last year, had a return to form. and they completely dominated their division. No one even came close to touching them. And the reward was the first seed in the Eastern Conference. Montreal, on the other hand, while they have been showing promise, guys like David Suzuki, Cole Caulfield have been playing well for them. They have been a very streaky team. They win 5 in a row, they lose 5 in a row. And going down the stretch here, it looked like they wanted to miss the playoffs, if I'm being honest. But they made it in, barely. And the reward is the Washington Capitals in the first round. Yeah, the Montreal Canadiens make it in despite losing more than half their games in the regular season. And this is going to be a David versus Goliath match in the first round. Last time they met in the playoffs, the Capitals were also very heavily favored to win. And, they blew a 3-1 lead back in 2010 in the exact same way that the Leafs blew a 3-1 lead to the Habs. They lost game 1, won games 2 through 4, and then lost the last 3. And I think these Caps, I don't think they're done yet. Don't get me wrong, the Habs are going to make it hard on them. I think the most notable thing about the Habs overall is their arena, and more specifically, their fans. Oh my goodness, dude. Games at the Bell Center, especially during the regular season, you see the difference. They are noticeably louder than, every other building in the league. They really care, and they really rally around their team. And in the playoffs, it is going to be deafening in there. And Montreal has a reputation in the past of being able to thrive off that crowd atmosphere. And it's going to be difficult for the Caps on the road against that team. So it's going to be critical that they get some wins at home early. And, if they keep stacking on the goals, if Ovechkin stays hot, I think they'll very well win this series. But it's not going to be easy. I think the safe bet would be Caps in 6, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was Habs in 6. You never know. So I'm picking the Caps, which is the safe bet, but do not rule out Montreal.
Yeah, I'll agree with not ruling out Montreal. I'm pulling up the 2010 series now, and I feel like this is the exact same script. The only difference was in 2010, the Capitals won the President's Trophy. This year, they did not, but I want to say the Capitals were top 5 in the league, so the Capitals do have that top record. Now, I feel like for the Capitals, they just need to not get overconfident, and if they just do what they've been doing in the regular season, just play simple, allow Ovechkin in his office, the howitzers, and I think they'll be fine. However, I do think Montreal is a big upset. They're an upset pick. I would not be surprised if it's a 7-game upset. I don't think the Capitals would blow a lead again, but I feel like Montreal could take it to them. I feel like with Capitals, I think my concern would be in net, because from what I've seen, it's been flipping back and forth between Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. I don't know who's going to start game 1, but I think for the Capitals, their flaw could be goaltending, because Ovechkin can score all the goals he wants, but if the defense and goaltending allow so many goals, you can't win a series. Defense wins championships. Even though I get mad about that in soccer, it's true. Defense does win championships. I feel like your last line of defense is goaltending, and if the Capitals' goaltending does not show up, the Capitals could be upset in the first round. So I'm going to go with another upset. I'm going to say Montreal in 7.
All right, so you're predicting the same thing as in 2010. Yeah, Charlie Lindgren, he is definitely not looked the hottest. I'm going to be honest, and that might be the Capitals' Achilles heel. Yeah, I am not confident about the Caps. I mean, don't get me wrong, they are a strong team. Mostly what I've noticed is their defense is very good. Much like the Kings, they have had a largely airtight defense in many games. But yeah, goaltending has been a weak spot for them. They've had no trouble scoring, obviously, but Montreal, if they find a way to capitalize on their home crowd and they manage to get inside the heads of the Capitals goaltenders, it should very well be an upset for them. But still, I'm sticking with Caps in 6. I'm not going to be too upset if I'm wrong about that, but we'll see what happens. That'll definitely be another good one to watch. So, last but not least, we have the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils. Now, the Devils, even when they were ahead of the Hurricanes in the standings early on, I said that if the Canes meet up with the Devils, the Canes are going to win. And I still think that now. I think the Canes are better in just about every single aspect. I think offensively, defensively, I think the Canes, they got it going on. I don't know who the Canes are starting in the playoffs. I imagine it would be Frederik Andersen, which, I loved him when he was on the Leafs. Like, he was solid. His save percentage is down from what it was last year, but I think he's still a solid goalie. I would go with him personally. And let's see how he pairs up with Kochetkov. Okay, I'm getting the beach ball of death on my mouse here. Yeah, that's great. Just don't let me type stuff in. I love it when that happens. Right when I'm trying to look up player stats. Okay. All right, great. So I guess Chrome just doesn't want me to do anything. That's fantastic. But yeah, getting off topic there. The Devils have looked sloppy. Honestly, like, I'm seeing them like turn over pucks. They look strong early in the season. Like, with Sheldon Keefe at the helm, they were looking strong early on, but they have just fallen off a cliff, and I believe they're below the wild card Senators in the standings, which is kind of crazy. And yeah, I'd honestly be surprised if the Devils don't get swept. That's how little faith I have in them. I am the most confident in this series than I am in all the other series. I am going Hurricanes in 4.
Ooh, man, I was right as you were saying about the Hurricanes. I saw this post from NHL Watcher on Twitter that said the Hurricanes finished the season going 1-6-1 in their last game. So if that's any good news for the Devils, the Hurricanes are kind of tripping on their own shoelaces. Now, for the Devils, however, if we may remember, back in early March, Jack Hughes underwent shoulder surgery, and he's missing the rest of the regular season, meaning that he's not going to be in the playoffs. So the Devils are going to be without Jack Hughes. That's a big piece being lost. I feel like I honestly I can't decide. On one side, the Hurricanes have, I don't want to say inconsistent, although they have been. They've had a bit of a, not drama-filled, but definitely tumultuous year with Rosen going in and out, other pieces, Hurricanes, but I feel like a hobbled Devils team without Jack Hughes. I don't think it's a sweep, although I would say maybe 5 or 6 games for Carolina. I would think Carolina in 5 or 6. I think it might take longer to beat the Devils, but once again, I could be wrong. We could both be wrong, and New Jersey pulls off an upset, but I'm going to have to say Hurricanes in 5 or 6.
Well, those are all the first round series. Earlier I said my way too early finals prediction. I believe I said Golden Knights versus Capitals in a previous episode. I am changing my prediction. As of right now, this might surprise a lot of people. I'm going Avalanche versus Panthers in the finals. 2 of the third place teams meeting up in the finals. I mean, I feel like this would be pretty on brand for what we see in the playoffs generally. I think the team that has the best chance of upsetting the Washington Capitals is the Florida Panthers. And the Avs, I could see them beating the Jets. I could see them beating the Knights. I could see them beating the Kings. Yeah, I think Avs versus Panthers, 1996 rematch. That is my prediction as of right now. So, like I said, this is hockey. Anything could happen. Watch me be wrong after round 1. But do you have a finals matchup prediction?
I wouldn't exactly call this a prediction, but I guess more of a hopeful. I feel like for both of us, what we would hope would be the finals would be Blues Maple Leafs. That would be the best matchup, at least for us, and maybe for St. Louis and Toronto. Maybe not the rest of the league. I think if Toronto made the finals, I feel like a bunch of people outside of a certain Ontario area would lose their minds. I think the rest of Canada would be divided because they would say, do we want a Canadian team to win the cup and end the drought? But we have to root for the Maple Leafs, which is a tough sell. I would really love to see the Blues go to the finals again. It'd be awesome. They don't have the best of odds. I've been saying a bunch of people that say, oh, but the Blues are going to get swept in the first round. They're going to lose in the first round. All I've been saying the whole time is that it's house money. The Blues don't have expectations. I honestly just want them to have fun, make the series against the Jets interesting. I would love to see the Blues in the finals. What I'm hoping for is Blues Maple Leafs in the finals, or even another one if we want to make a real, true dark horse Stanley Cup final, Blues Canadians, the battle of the second wild cards, and also a rematch of the 1968 and 69 Stanley Cup finals, where the dominant Canadians swept the first and second year Blues both times. Those are two matchups I would hope would happen, and in both of them, a Canadian team makes the finals. So the discussion could continue of, will a Canadian team finally end the drought? So there are Canadian teams in the playoffs right now. The only ones not in here are Vancouver and Calgary. So there is a decent chance a Canadian team could make the finals, but it's not a guarantee. But I'm hopeful the Blues could make the finals. If we're being realistic, I don't think so, but the optimistic in me is hopeful. My gut feeling is just saying don't say anything, just let the games happen, but I just want to watch the games and see what happens and go from there. I'm hopeful the Blues could make it, but I'm trying to tell myself, be patient and just let the series play out.
Well, best of luck to your team in the playoffs. Before we end this episode, I just want to send a message to all you viewers out there. If you have any friends or any family members who do not watch hockey, now is the time to get them into the sport. Especially if they're on the fence, like they're aware of hockey but they don't really follow it. Please do a good service and get them to watch a playoffs game with you, or even an entire playoffs series, because there is a very good chance you could get them hooked. This is the best time of the year to do it because playoffs hockey is elevated between what we see in the regular season and the postseason. You need to get more eyes on the sport. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be an amazing playoffs. Anything could happen. Don't feel bad if your predictions don't come true because hockey is so unpredictable and it is so exciting. And so I really do encourage you, if you have anyone who's on the fence about becoming a hockey fan, please, now is the best time to get them into the sport. Now more than ever. All right? You know, hockey in general has been seeing good momentum following the Four Nations. So let's continue that in the playoffs. Let's try to get more people watching this amazing tournament. And for all of you watching, best of luck to whoever you're cheering for to win the Stanley Cup. If your team didn't make it, well, better luck next year, but you should still watch anyways because the playoffs are always exciting. Anything you want to add before we end the episode here?
Yes, certainly. Anyone, if you're watching this is your first time watching this and you are not a hockey fan or you are new to hockey, we both agree, definitely watch playoff hockey. Even if it's not your team, even if you have no interest, still watch it. It's going to be just like the Four Nations face-off. The pressure is high, atmosphere is electric, the fans are into it. It's where legends are made. And honestly, if you know people that are not hockey fans or have never watched hockey or are interested in watching hockey, this is the best time to hook them. Playoff hockey is different. There are people at school who probably have never seen a Blues game in their life, haven't even watched it. I try to convince them and they don't listen to me, but this is the best time to watch hockey. Playoff hockey is different, and yeah, we hope we just hope this playoffs is really good. I think also another future video we could talk about the teams that did not make the playoffs and what they do this off season. That's another thing we could potentially talk about. But besides that, that's all I've got for this episode.
Thank you all very much for watching. We will definitely be back to share our takes as the playoffs progress and we start seeing teams drop off. Buckle up, everyone. It's the calm before the storm. Get ready for the best time in the hockey calendar. Thank you all very much for listening in. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, thank you for listening to our predictions. Feel free to drop your own predictions down in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and we will see you in the next episode.